We're looking at Lent and looking to the Lord God to give us a guidance through the course of Lent. This is for the first week of Lent. It's got to be a week of growth in the Spirit. So let me tell you first about St. Teresa of Lizard. She is now a doctor of the Church, which means to say that what she wrote we ought to attend to very carefully. It contains the truth of Jesus. She was a novice at the time in a Carmelite convent in France. And as a novice, they got some of the awkward jobs which are required in every household. She writes how one time she and another sister, also a novice, were given the task of scrubbing out the floor of the refectory. That was the place where they eat. It would have been quite a big room. It was a large convent. And they were on their knees working away with hard bristles, scrubbing brushes, no Swiffers in those days. And the sister who was working with her was a little bit clumsy by nature and perhaps trying to go a little bit too fast, with the result that she was constantly splashing the water upon Sister Teresa, and not merely that, but she was constantly splashing the water on the area of the refectory that they'd already cleaned, and it had to be done again. And Sister Teresa writes how she decided that she would just say nothing. She would not react in any way. She did not get angry or irritable. She did not complain. She did not criticize the other sister. She did not exert her rights and say that this was just creating extra work. She chose to stay in silence. Now you may say that that was not a good reaction. You may argue that if she had quietly mentioned to the other girl that she was causing a little bit of a problem, then the problem would go away. Well, it sounds good. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes that's the beginning of a full-scale argument and a knockdown fight. What St. Teresa did, and this is the point that we need to look at, what St. Teresa did was to point to the spiritual reaction to the situation. What is the reaction of a person who has a relationship with the Spirit of God and is therefore guided by the Spirit of God? Look at, therefore, at the spiritual aspect of the work that they were doing. It was a work of service. True, they had been ordered to do it and they were doing it under obedience. But it was a work of service. It was for the help of the community. It was to make the life of the community go more smoothly, to give a better quality to the life of all the other sisters of whom they were a part. It's exactly the same in your life. There are chores to be done at home. And all those chores, whether they're simple or whether they're awkward or whether they're hard, whether they take a lot of time or whether they're done very quickly, they're all part of your service to one another and therefore of your service to God. Whatever it is, cooking and ironing, doing the laundry, folding the clothes, cleaning the house, doing the shopping, all of those things are a part of the service that we give to God, because it makes our family's life easier. We make our family better presented in public. We make their time more pleasant. So secondly, we look at not merely what is done, not merely what the service is, but how the service is done. This is really where the influence of the Spirit comes into our life. St. Teresa chose to stand not on her rights, but to give way to the other person. She put herself on one side. Isn't that what we read in that poem of St. Paul, which speaks to us of Jesus, who emptied himself, did not count equality with God something to be held on to, but emptied himself, and becoming as we are, he was humbler yet, even to death upon the cross. That's something that we should really look at in this first week of Lent. What is the level of the humility in our life? Humility is the foundation stone of the spiritual life. Humility, therefore, is the necessary element which makes it possible for us to begin to enter into a relationship with the Spirit and to grow in that relationship. The opposite of humility is pride. We're very familiar with that. Pride is the thing that leads to sin. It was pride that led Adam and Eve to the first sin. Now, we do not produce humility by our own efforts. It is a gift of God. Our task is to get rid of the pride which is so often and so normally, you might say, a part of human life. So let me offer you a few thoughts which may help you to work on your pride, that humility may grow. We tend to complain about things that don't suit us. That's because of our pride. We think life should be better for ourselves, and therefore we don't like the things that sometimes that others do. And so we become a little bit hot under the collar, we become sharp and unpleasant, irritable, and everybody suffers as a result of it. What can we do about the complaints that become part of our life? Well, first of all, we can notice when we are complaining, and the best way to make that notice effective is to write it down. If you don't keep a journal, just write it down on a piece of paper that you will keep for this Lenten period. Write down the complaints that you make, and then ask the Lord to help you to work on that, to not to react in that way, and to bring peace to your life. Secondly, it is pride that makes us criticize. We criticize what we don't like. Sometimes we have to criticize for professional reasons. A teacher will have to criticize the work of the students. The best way to criticize is to show them the way to improve. The criticism I'm thinking of is just when things don't suit us, so we criticize what the other person does. And actually, immediately, that begins to make us feel better. So again, we've got to notice what it is that we criticize. Is it the way people do things? Is it the way that people speak? Is it simply because it's different from the way we do things? And then you must ask the Lord to help you to see what is good in what people do, to focus on the good that they do, to the extent that you don't notice the things that are different from the way you would do it. And so you begin to praise the person, and your pride begins to go down. Humility requires that we live the truth. And so if lies, telling lies, even what you call white lies, are a part of your life, then they have to be faced. Again, we have to recognize the instigation of our pride. We tell lies because we want to appear better or we want to get out of trouble. Face the truth. How can you face the truth? As you tell the lie, so you must correct yourself there and then to the very person who is hearing the untruth, and tell to them the true reality as it has happened. In chapter 17 of the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 17, verses 7 to 10, Jesus tells a parable. We call it the parable of the stewards. He tells how The steward comes in from work. He's had a hard day, 12 hours work in the sun. How the steward comes in from work, and Jesus asks the question, would the master of the house say to him, sit down and I will serve you dinner? Would he not rather say, serve dinner to me and then you may eat? And Jesus concludes that parable with this very telling phrase. St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 17. He says, when you are made to serve, know that you are no more than a servant. Know that you are no more than a servant. And when humility becomes part of our life, we will be proud that we are no more than servants. Thank you.